Hello and welcome. You are live with Sandra at It's All About Choices, where every Tuesday I have the pleasure of dishing out your weekly dose of nutrition, wellness news for your mind, your body, and your soul. And I hope that you are having a wonderful day. I hope that your week is going well. And I thank you for those who tune in live with me every week. I appreciate the fact that you take time out live to join me. And for those who are listening to the replay, I also thank you for taking time out and listening to the replay. And whether you're listening live or whether you're listening to the replay, I encourage engagement. I love engagement, whether that's asking a question, making a comment, having an aha moment, saying, ouch. I want this to serve as a two-way form of communication so that we are able to help each other out. And so I monitor the thread throughout the week. So if you do have any questions or comments, please post them. And those who are tuning in live, say hello to me. Say hello. Give me a shout out. Let me know where you're tuning in from. So we are in March. We are still in the month of March. And March is when I do the March Madness, where I like to re-air your favorite topics. And so this month, we are airing some of the topics that were most viewed, that you responded to the most, that really got you intrigued. And so today we are talking about what processed foods really means. What does that really mean? And are all processed foods bad for you? Okay. And do they hinder weight loss? Okay. So there's a lot of controversy. What is processed and what is not processed? So we're going to talk about that. And so processed foods has a reputation of being a diet sabotage, right? And so processed foods are linked to cancers, are linked to allergies, the obesity epidemic, high blood pressure, diabetes, and just a whole host of negative health outcomes. And so in many cases, this is true, especially if the processed foods or highly processed foods are dominating your eating pattern versus the whole foods and less processed foods. So note my words. I'm going to talk about those a little later. So think of purchasing organic, eating raw vegetables, and are going vegan. No meat, no poultry, no eggs, no dairy are all the natural path and the way to go to eliminate processed foods from your diet. What do you think? Do you think that's true? What do you think about that? The question is, what is your definition of processed foods? Okay, so join me. Stay with me to the end. We're going to talk about your thoughts on this. I'm going to share 3 insightful facts about processed foods and what you may not have thought to consider. Okay, so let's dive on in. So for those who do not know me, my name is Sandra Goltry. I'm a registered dietitian. I am a certified personal trainer and your friendly accountability partner. And I pull from a variety of leading edge weight loss and lifestyle strategies. They work together hand in hand. And I help adults to integrate healthier eating habits into their usually hectic lifestyles. Okay. So we shouldn't have to choose one or the other. How do we make them both work together? And so the goal is building lifestyle habits that last the long term, not just a Band-Aid. Okay. And empower you with knowledge, because that's what it's all about. So we're focusing on breaking those food strongholds, and we're also focusing on creating a lifestyle of self-care. Okay. And so again, chime in as you're tuning in. Tell me your name, where you're tuning in from, and do you think you eat a lot of processed foods? Yes or no, huh? So that's what we're talking about. Favorite topics for this week is processed foods. What does that really mean? Are they really bad for you? And do they hinder weight loss? Okay. So I always have my poll question just to kind of get an idea of my audience for today. And so are you intrigued? Are you interested in knowing more about healthy food versus processed foods? Okay. So if you're intrigued, just simply type intrigued. All right. And so before we dive in, I'm going to segue a little bit into we're still in the new year. We're still in the first quarter of the new year. Have you been able to stick to your strategies designed to help you to lose weight or to actually lose weight and keep it off? Have you? We're in month 3. And so is this your year to get healthier? Is this your year to really make some changes that will stick? Okay. So good news is I have a 5-day meal plan that you can access at no charge. And this plan is designed to help boost your metabolism, get that process started, help you to jumpstart some weight loss, feel better, increase energy levels. You'll be amazed at what is possible in just a short period of time with just small changes. And to help you to reduce your time at the grocery store as well as your grocery shopping list. Okay. And so stay with me to the end. I'm going to give a lot more details about this 5-day meal plan. However, if you do have to jump off, This is how you can access it. www.actionchoices.com/jumpstart. And you can download it and you have access to 5 days of meals and snacks that you can either do in its entirety to really maximize benefits, or pick and choose some of the ones that you want to, some of the recipes that you just want to kind of start immediately. All right. So either way, they're both going to benefit you, whichever way you choose. So let's jump in. What are highly processed foods? So you probably heard that it's best to reduce your intake of highly processed foods and to live your healthiest life. Okay. So before I get into what makes food highly processed, it's important to understand that foods aren't necessarily unhealthy just because they're processed in some way. Okay. So here's a news flash. Nearly all foods are processed. Okay. You have at least to some extent. Okay. So for example, manufacturers process dry beans to make them more shelf stable. Okay. This does not make them less unhealthy. Okay. That means you may need to rinse them because maybe sometimes there's more added salt, et cetera, et cetera. So there's ways to still say that they're healthy. And so to make it easier to understand food processing, researchers have separated foods into 4 categories. Okay. And I'm going to briefly talk about this. So they have a classification system of how food is categorized. So you have group 1 through group 4. And so group 1 is your minimally processed foods, like your vegetables, your fruits, your grains, your beans, your nuts. These fall into this category. They have gone through like the roasting process, the boiling, pasteurization to increase shelf life to make them safe to eat. But that is a level of processing that we don't think about. So it's very minimal. And I'll give another example, the bagged spinach or the bagged vegetables that we get. That is processed. It's just minimally processed, okay? So unless you're pulling it from the ground by yourself, it's some level of processing going on. So group 2 is processed culinary ingredients. So these are they're directly from group 1, which I just spoke about. Then, they're typically from group 1 in nature, but these foods can include things such as olive oil, maple syrup, salt, things like that. So group 2 are mainly used in the preparation and the cooking of the things that are in group 1. Okay, so sometimes those things are added to a food. So that's a level of process. So it's still, not too much going on, but still some level of processing. Then we have group 3, okay, processed foods. So these include items that are made by adding ingredients like salt and sugar, other substances from group 2 to group 1 foods. So for example, you have your bread, certain fruits, syrup, cheese. So we got a little bit more level of processing going on. And then we have level 4. Okay, level 4 is your highly processed, ultra processed foods. So these contain little, if any, foods from group 1, because group 1 was typically your whole foods in state, pretty much the foods in its natural form. And any processing done to group 1 is just to make it safe to eat, like pasteurization. So these items are not meant to be convenient. They're meant to be convenient. They're meant to be convenient. They're meant to be fast. And then they're highly palatable. They are low cost. They typically are higher in sugar, higher in refined grains, higher in the fats that are not as healthy for us, preservatives, additives, and definitely salt. Okay, so this is stuff that we just want longevity out of it. We want quick, ready to go. And unfortunately, this is what predominates or dominates majority of our diets, and it's not necessarily frozen meals, because people think, oh, I don't do frozen meals, so I'm good. No, it doesn't have to be frozen these days. You can get it from the deli. Okay, so sorry. So are you surprised? So post if you are surprised to hear that vegetables and fruit, grains, beans, sometimes they are processed to some degree. If it's in a container, like I said, roasting, things like that is considered minimally processed. Okay. So not everything inside of the store is unhealthy. We kind of have that rule. You shop at the perimeter of the store. That's where you're going to have your most healthy items. Things down the aisle are less healthy. Well, yes, they're less healthy, but not all things are less healthy. You have to read labels and understand how to do that. And so minimal processed, yet still processed. And then you have your unprocessed is when, like I said, you're eating them straight from the ground, which is unless you're growing it in the backyard. So it's important to note that there's some gray areas between what's highly processed. So for example, you have breakfast cereal, okay? They are quickly tagged as being highly processed, okay? So healthcare experts do not consider some cereals highly processed if they contain no added sugar, for instance, okay? But a no added sugar cereal, do you have to go to that extreme to get the benefits of it? No, you really don't. So I generally say if it's less than 10 grams of added sugar and it is a whole grain cereal, that's even better. Then hey, it has gone through some minimal processing and it's okay. It's okay. So not all cold cereal, because a lot of times people tag cold cereal as bad or unhealthy, and that's not necessarily the case. Okay. And so one good indication that a food is falling more in the highly processed end of the spectrum are foods that typically, when you look at the ingredient list, either you can't read it or you typically would not use it in food preparation. Like we were talking about the salt and the sugar and things like that. So things that we just typically wouldn't use in food preparation. All right, so let's talk about, let's see here. Hydrolyzed proteins. So this is another topic here. So MSG and things like that. So I don't have a banner for this one, but you got hydrolyzed proteins, you got modifiers, you have hydrogenated oils. Think about some of these things you kind of see on the list. You may not even know what it is. Colorants, artificial coloring, flavors, sweeteners, bulking agents. You have foaming and gelling agents, flavor enhancers. People know about MSG. Well, MSG is just a fancy scientific way of saying too much salt. Okay. It's just too much salt. And so alphabet soup is what I call it because there's so many different forms. And these are things that we typically would not include in our food preparation. Okay, so those are some examples. Some of them are less healthy, some of them are more healthy. It just really kind of depends. It really kind of depends. So some examples of highly processed food. So now that you have an idea of what makes food highly processed, so let's dig a little bit deeper on the categories, okay? And so this list is by no means all inclusive, by no means. So I have more examples on my blog, but here are just a few that I'm going to point out, okay? So 100% fruit juice or fruit juice in general, okay? So if it doesn't say 100% fruit juice, it is not equivalent to the whole fruit. And so a lot of my moms, they want to buy the Honest or something that's reduced sugar or things like that. But no, you want 100% fruit juice. So spend the extra $1 to buy the 100% fruit juice. At least it's equivalent to the whole fruit minus the fiber. And you control the portions, okay? You limit it to 4 to 6 ounces, depending on their age. And then get the rest from water, get the rest from fruit. But definitely it's a better choice. It's not going to wire your kids. That's kind of a myth. That is not evidence-based. That means your kids are just wired naturally. I have one, so I get it. Okay. Some other highly processed foods are like baking mixes such as stuffings, cakes, brownies that are in a box that you're not making on your own, cookies, cookie mixes. Those are very highly processed. Packaged breads and buns. However, opt for the whole grain, because if you opt for the whole grain, at least you're getting some health benefits. Okay. And many of the breads, they are coming without preservatives and without additives. So you just kind of have to read the label. So you do not have to spend the extra money on Ezekiel breads or things that require you to keep them in the freezer. You don't have to do that. Then you have energy bars, protein bars, the packaged shakes. Okay, those are very popular because, again, convenience. But those things are very highly processed. I would rather you make your own smoothie and so forth. And then bars, that's kind of another topic. And then we have your replacement shakes, your powders, typically meant for weight loss. I mean, those are diet type foods. Diet type foods, believe it or not, are very highly processed. You're better off eating whole foods and knowing how to make them taste good for you, and then throwing in your fun foods, I like to say, so that you can stay sane and have that balance. Okay. Ice cream. All right. That's a big one. That's highly processed. So there are a lot of things that are highly processed. Does that mean stay away from it? Absolutely. But it should not dominate your eating pattern. Okay. And so some things are worth eliminating, like ramen noodles. That's probably one of the few things that I will say, come on. But a lot of people still eat them. And so what's your favorite highly processed food? We all have one. Let me see here. Here you go. I'm going down here to pull up the banner. So what is your favorite highly processed food? For me, I would say, if you want to say highly processed food, I do whole wheat bread. And I even look for whole wheat buns when I'm trying to do hot dogs and hamburgers to try to get some kind of nutrition out of it. So it just kind of depends. I vary with it. I enjoy the Kind bars, which are the nuts and spices line, though. So those are, I would say, probably midway. They're not highly processed like some of the other, like some of the typical protein bars and energy bars, but these I enjoy because and also it has a mix of, it's not just protein, so it's a mix of your macros, which is very, very important. Pretty typically, most butter spreads, margarine spreads, those are gonna be highly processed, but I'm still going to enjoy eating them, okay, or including that in my eating. And then for fun stuff, I'll do the Belvitas, or I do chips, or I'll do the Snicker bar. I grew up on Snicker bar, loving those type of things. So it's not that you need to not include it. You just need to make sure that you have enough of the stuff that's helping your body to be able to handle the stuff that's not quite so helping the body. It's more so helping your feelings, okay, and enjoyment. All right. So food is one of life's main sources of enjoyment. So it's important that it's a part of our lives and we enjoy it, okay? Because if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to keep it up. And so it's perfectly healthy to enjoy your favorite snacks, your ice cream, once in moderation, once in a while, okay? And sometimes I have clients where we have to make sure we kind of have an allotment for something on a regular basis, because that will save them from feeling deprived. And that's very, very, very important, okay? All right, so we are going to continue on. So let's talk about what foods are considered on a little healthier side. So let's see here. What are considered a little bit healthier? So in general, you have your fresh vegetables, you have your fruit, you have your low-fat milk. Yes, cow's milk, or lactose-free milk, or soy milk. Yes, soy milk is healthy too. The other milks are in a different category. And then you have your chicken, your fish, your beans, your eggs. They are considered unprocessed or minimally processed. So it just kind of depends. And this is because these foods go through either no or minimal processing before you buy them, okay? Or you harvest them yourself, depending. And so we commonly refer to these as whole foods, okay? So that does not mean you have to eat everything raw. That does not mean you cannot have seasoning. That does not mean, typically what we hear. And because they're original, they're their whole form, and they're very close to their whole form. So you do want to make it to where it tastes good to you. So I generally teach the 80-20 rule. And this is why it is not necessary to put yourself through these extreme diets. Deprivation, low calorie dieting, juicing is the only way to go. Our bodies does a very good job of detoxing. We just need to know how to enhance our natural detoxification system. And so the longer term is, you want to keep your sanity. You want to control cravings. You want to have optimal health. You want to be able to perform well and do well when you're exercising and get the benefits of exercising, as well as you want to manage your weight. You need to actually eat enough to do all that. And so here are some examples of some whole foods. Like, again, we talked about the whole fruits and vegetables, but frozen is good as well. You can do fresh, frozen, or dried when it comes to fruits. Dried fruit is good too when it's naturally dried. Okay, so but again, moderation, knowing what that means, but it is an option. And all three versions of the fruit, whether it's whole, whether it's 100% fruit juice or dry fruit, they all bring different nutrients to the table. So it's good to have a mixture if you like them, but do not discount dried fruit because you think it has added sugar. Okay, when it's the natural form, it's not added. Okay, it just tastes sweeter because it's more concentrated, but it is healthy. Okay, so you have your grains like your rice, your quinoa, your brown rice. You have your legumes like your beans and your lentils. You have your root vegetables like sweet potatoes, white potatoes, cassava, all kinds of things. You have your lean meat, poultry, fish, eggs. Okay, lean red meat has its place. Lean pork has its place. So we don't need to discount it unless it's for religious purposes, or maybe you just truly don't like it, but don't discount it because of what you heard. Okay, so it's everything in moderation. Pasteurized milk, yogurt. You don't have to do plain yogurt. So there are healthy versions of yogurt, and there are dessert versions of yogurt. Okay, you have 100% fruit juice as well as vegetable juice. Okay, 100% means it will not have added sugar. Herbs and spices are naturally sodium free, and you should use those variety of natural herbs and spices throughout your cooking. It doesn't heighten the flavors. Tea and coffee, healthy, unless it's loaded with sugar and cream. You know, I didn't say none, but when it's loaded, when it's like a dessert, then of course that's where the problem comes in. Nut seeds, it's a thin line because you got people who like the honey roasted and the chocolate covered. So we just got to be mindful of how we have our nuts uh, in moderation. So again, I have a more extensive list on my blog. And so let's see here. What whole foods do you feel you need to add more of? Let me see if I have a list here. I do. So what whole foods do you feel like you need to add more of? Okay. Most people, dairy, definitely. Starchy root vegetables, lean protein, legumes, nuts and seeds, herbs, spices. A lot of times people like to load up on herbs and spices when they're sick or trying to accomplish something health-wise. Just do it regularly because it's not no one magic bullet. You need to do it on a regular basis, not just kind of in bulk here and then you don't do it for a while. So you want to make sure you stay consistent. So variety is key to maximizing the nutrients that your body gets. Okay. No one food has it all. So when you have variety, then you don't have to worry about, am I getting enough of this? Am I getting enough of that? Okay. And so before going a little bit deeper into whole foods, I do want to kind of touch base with you and share with you how you can put all this together. Like, how do you know what to do? How do you put all these pieces together? Especially if you are tired of dieting, you're getting frustrated, you're disappointed, you feel like you're not getting the results. What do you need to do? You're confused. What do you need to eat? What? Okay. So I've got you covered. That is what this 5-day meal plan is all about. It's easy to follow, and it will put a lot of these things that I've been talking about today, as well as in previous lives, into action. Okay. You'll be able to see different flavors, different spices, different combinations of things put together and bring to heighten the flavors as well as enjoyment. Okay. And so it's all designed to give you a surge of energy that will last you throughout the day. So you're not depending on highly processed things like sugar and caffeine and things like that. You'll also benefit from eating well. You realize that you don't have to starve yourself. You'll realize you don't have to restrict so heavily. So that will help keep those cravings at bay. And you'll wake up feeling rested, ready to go, of course, provided you're getting enough sleep as well. They both work together. And it's going to help you to boost your body's natural detoxification system, immune system, etc. So it's just a fun, natural way to do it. And you'll see that it's not difficult. This is just one example. There are many ways to do it. And so here again, you can download it at www.actionchoices.com/jumpstart to check it out, get started. Feel free to post any comments, ask me any questions, but it's very detailed on why I put it together, substitutions, and things like that. So a lot of things you may already have, you don't even need to buy it. Okay. So that's a good thing about that. All right. So let's talk about this. More insights on whole food. So post yes if you stop eating granola because you figured it had too much added sugar or just not healthy. So I'm talking about granola specifically because this is a food that some foods border. Okay. So it is made from whole grains. It's made from oats. Right? It's made from oats. It typically will have dried fruit in it. Sometimes it has some nuts in it. But we want to, so post yes if you stop eating granola. I'm just kind of curious about that one. But when items are made from whole foods, there's typically no added sugar. Sometimes it is. You have polenta that's made from cornmeal, but all of these are considered minimally processed and it is healthy. So granola is an example. Like I said, dried fruit is an example. Then you have some oils such as olive oil, avocado oil. They're derived from whole foods and they are healthy choices. Okay. But they've been processed. They got to come from the olives. They got to come from the avocado. So you had to do something to process it in order to turn it into a liquid. Right. And so let's talk a little bit more about the term healthy. Okay. So the term healthy in regards to food is to me problematic at times because it can be demonized. It can demonize foods that are considered processed. Okay. And so rather than use the word healthy, I like to describe food as either it's nutrient dense or it's like fun food. Okay. So I kind of like to change that up. And so minimally processed or unprocessed foods, if you are growing it yourself, are more nutrient dense, okay, than highly processed foods. So meaning it's going to do more to help your body thrive, okay? And so for an example, homemade soup, okay, made with chicken, vegetables, brown rice, and low sodium broth, or maybe you prepare your broth on your own, which is even better, has much more nutrition than the soup that you're going to get from a can or a box or even a restaurant. Okay, because the restaurant is going to have it's going to have a lot of salt in it. Okay, so that's something to think about. So it's just a matter of how do you turn something that's processed, highly processed, into a version that is less processed, but yet you don't lose the taste, or things are not being replaced with things that are so artificial that now it's no longer healthy. So that's what we're trying to get at. And those are a lot of the things that I do with my clients. I have access to thousands of recipes. And so, how do you make a healthier version of brownies, but yet they still taste good? Or how do you make certain dishes that you love to have, pizza, etc., and it still tastes good? And that's really what it's about. It's just knowing how to utilize a lot of the natural foods and herbs and spices that God has given us. So the big takeaway message here is there are several differences between minimally processed and highly processed foods. And here are just some of the main ones. So the calories in ultra processed foods are higher, right, than those that are minimally processed. Sugar content in ultra processed foods tend to be higher in added sugar. Okay, think of soda, sugar sweetened drinks, things like that. Ultra processed foods are commonly lower in fiber. Typically, they could be low in protein, but a lot of times stuff is added to it in addition. And so, in lower in vitamins and minerals, higher in salt, higher in fat content, the unsaturated fats, the one that we really don't want to, that we want to stay, have lower, as well as just overall not as nutritious. And so, however, there are many exceptions. So this is where being a skillful label reader is important, okay? Because you don't want to, you need to know how to separate marketing from what is this label really saying, okay? Because marketing has a lot of power and can sway people or persuade people to not choose it, even though that may not be what's going on, or to choose it. And it's really not what you think it is, okay? So in summary, there are differences between highly processed and minimally processed foods, as well as processed and unprocessed. And so the big question is, how do you apply all this? And so that is where the Jumpstart plan that I spoke about comes into play, okay? So this is a way to kind of see some of this stuff into action, okay? And if you continue to struggle to lose weight, you feel like you need a little bit more personalization, then reach out to me. But this at least give you a sneak peek on how you can kind of see, well, how can I make certain things work for me, okay? And so that's really what it's all about. So definitely check out the Jumpstart. I encourage you to download it. I encourage you to reach out to me for any comments or questions. And if you are curious about a food in particular, about how it's processed and is there a better version of it, don't hesitate to reach out to me. And so this concludes what I have for today's nutrition dose of your nutrition news for your mind, your body, and your soul. I'm Sandra, your RDN, and thank you for tuning in. We are all about creating a lifestyle of self-care as well as breaking food strongholds. And next week, we are going to talk a little bit. I'm going to continue my final topic on our March Madness and our favorite topics. And we are going to talk about 100% fruit juice, specifically in a lot more detail. And does that really hinder weight loss and health? Does it promote good health? Does it not promote good health? And so do you avoid fruit juice? I know a lot of people who avoid 100% fruit juice, okay? But they'll drink a soda. So stay tuned. I have some shocking news to share about that. And this topic is going to actually fall under my Thursday newsletter, as well as my Thursday post. So you'll be able to get the details of the 100% fruit juice, as well as a recording of that particular topic in detail. However, live, I'm going to feature my up close and personal segment where I feature one of my clients that they share their powerful and inspirational testimony on how they overcame their particular health challenges, weight loss challenges. And next week, we're going to talk with Miss Marion Davis McPherson, and she had an incredible transformation of shedding 40 pounds and gaining a life of confidence, enjoyment, and energy. And she had a 38-year struggle with weight loss, extreme diets, deep fear of the scale, hate to get on the scale because that was used as a form to determine if she was successful or not. And constant battle with feeling defeated and stuck in that process of yo-yo dieting. So very familiar stuff, right? and lack of confidence. And she's 68 years young. So you guys are going to be amazed when you see her photos, her transformation photos, and just as well as hearing what she has to say. So tune in to hear from Miss Marion Davis next week. Bye for now. Have a great, 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 wonderful day, rest of your day. And I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.